What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the third album by rapper Trae the Truth. Basically, this product is called Restless, and it came out in the summer of 2006. So the thing about Trae the Truth in like the mid-2000s was he was one of the ones that was starting to blow up like within a relative sense, but it's just kind of the concept. He would usually get about one or two singles, mostly one within the pitches behind it, just within the concept. He's kind of more, not so much to say full-bound secondary in terms of like his quality, but just the aspect of not necessarily being like a banner southern rap artist when you think of folks like T.I. When you think of folks from like the mid 2000s, like T.I., Jeezy, Lil Wayne, Birdman, some of those type of folks, Young Jock, Young Dro, people like that within that fair. But he was definitely someone within the neighboring community of that. Once you started to get to more folks like Lil Kiki, and Killa Killian and some folks like that, and other folks from like the South, just in that more type of appeal. More folks within those particular type fashions, Zero, some of those type folks that I'd say is just within the pitch as far as that particular kind of goes, I just would say. But Trae the Truth is definitely one of those type ones in particular that was just pretty much has some good looks more often than he didn't. And I was surprised behind the hit quality of this particular album, just considering the fact that when I reviewed Life Goes On back in the summer 2024, I gave that like a 7.75 or like a light 8, something within that relative type pitch. But this easily exceeds that particular product, despite the fact probably one of my more favorite Trae the Truth songs to be Screwed Up with Lil Wayne on there. That's definitely one of his best ones. But this has some pretty good gems on here, even despite the fact that not every single song on here is like a nightclub blister to kind of get within that appeal. It has plenty of good nightlife. Just telling by the album cover, you can tell that the product of this album is just within the pitch of being mostly kind of demon time living. But it does have some makeshift songs in here. I was surprised by the relative amount of makeshift kind of commerce, just with the aspect of having like some cruise arounds. There's even like a Target song on here for some of that type fare of just like Panera Bread, Starbucks, Target, some of that type commerce, and more Monday, Tuesday kind of morning kind of winter brush, some of those type fares. So it's just a good aspect to kind of have for some of that. But this is a pretty vehicle centric type one. Definitely if you do enjoy your whip quite a bit and you love your car, just in the aspect, it has some pretty good aspects for like some good just living of just like just in motion kind of times. Not as many full bound kind of songs, like minus like the song In the Hood with Young Jock. I'd say for the most part it doesn't have like a ton of ringtone rap kind of dance steppers on here, which are probably could have used maybe like a few extra ones. But for the most part, this is still going to get a classic score. Just what I'd say is I pretty much recommend every song on here minus 2 of them. So it's just from the pitch. There's 17 songs on here, including the intro. That's some pretty excellent type for that. Just that many were that much of a blockade, just hit after hit after hit, I'd have to say. Now the thing about it is the soda score, that's a little bit trickier just within the tone behind it, just because the concept that Trae the Truth did have some charting songs. Basically, I want to say his highest charting single this period is In the Hood with Young Jock, which hit like the top 65 on like the rap and R&B songs chart as far as those pitches gonna have. Not the Billboard 100, but the R&B and rap songs chart. But it's just kind of within the pitch. It's still saying that it's some pretty good looks that he was just still relatively charming within that appeal. So some good type concepts. Basically snagged like a Young Jock verse in his prime in like the summer of 2006. So it was a good continued heat. The Young Jock continued his trend of having the Midas touch throughout 2006 like he was around that particular time. And it's a Mr. Lee beat on top of that, who's a pretty popular Texas producer for like Scarface and UGK and some of those type folks. So just good overall type appeal. Now the thing about Wikipedia is just the fact that it says that there are some folks on this album that are not really on here. I just look after, like it says that Big Pokey is on the song In the Hood, and he might be, but I just look after, I do know that Tupac was not on the song The Truth. It had said that he was on that particular song. It just maybe have been the concept that that was originally a Tupac song. I know that Trae the Truth really enjoyed Tupac back in like the mid 2000s, pitches like that. But then it also said that like Paul Wall was on the song Cadillac and he wasn't on there. So it's just kind of the pitch that Tupac and Paul Wall are not really on this album. And I at least listened to enough of In the Hood to realize that it was a good song, but I'm not sure if Big Pokey was on that particular song. So there may be some folks that are not particularly on this album that are just kind of amongst that aspect. But just being able to say, Wikipedia doesn't know as much full bound about this particular product, just kind of within the appeal behind it. But it is, like I was saying, like a pretty good classic on here. Just being able to say pretty good appeals for that. So there's 2 singles off this product, both of which did pretty well. Maybe not in terms of chart appeal, but just the overall aspect of just being able to say that they did have their blissiness. So Swing is the lead single. It's the nice one here. It's like a glittery kind of starry-eyed kind of cruise around to kind of get like a general night pizzazz. I'd have to say here, just long Texas nights, I would definitely say within that tone, just kind of amongst the blur of like the night pizzazz as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's kind of a product, it's real sparkly type one. Just really appreciate the appeal behind it. So Swing is just a nice good taste of Texas nightlife as far as those pitches can happen, just within the appeal like mid 2000s type flair as far as those fairs can happen. Just excellent type one, just stock kind of pitch behind that. Something that you would expect from Slim Thug, Bun B, Pimp C. There's a lot of chopped and screwed type stuff on here, so I would definitely say that Trae the Truth is easily like a DJ Screw kind of warrior just within those pitches, which is excellent type of appeal because a lot of that was really popping like the mid 2000s is folks like that. Everyone was kind of doing that chopped and screw type style. It was just a good pitch behind that just within the appeal. This is just another stock one for that particular fare. So you're going to get some good syrup dripping type fares as far as those pitches can have them good smokish type around this pitches like that. This car smelling like Alaskan Thunderfuck, chocolate tie, blueberry kush, some of those type of appeals as far as those pitches can have, and just the real aspects behind it. Just plenty of good appeals just within the tone. Good Cadillac swing in this pitches like that, I had to say. In the Hood is the second single. Now, like I was saying, this says that it has Young Jock and Big Pokey on there, but I know it at least has Young Jock on there, and this is a Mr. Lee beat. This is probably one. This particular song, In the Hood, is basically one of Trae the Truth's most popular songs in terms of commercial appeal, but it still was not. It's more in like hardcore territory, but it's definitely a relative nice one. It's the closest thing to ringtone rap on here. If you do like ringtone rap type bops, like It's Going Down by Young Jock, I Know You See It, Shoulder Lean by Young Dro, Rubber Band Banks by Young Dro, some of that type fare. Just the shit that was kind of going on pretty popularly in 2006. This is like the closest thing to that for Trae the Truth wise as far as those pitches can have. Just some good type feel. This real nice, iconic type song. And it's kind of mildly in hardcore type territory, but it's just an aspect that has enough appeal and pizzazz about it to be able to say that this is one of the most immediate ones to kind of get in like a casual type aspect. So it's like a snazzy kind of two-step hopper to kind of get here. Stock Mr. Lee beat, I'd have to say, is basically pretty much like screwed up in a more jarring type sense, and it's like some good dance club fire. The song is like some good dance club fire to kind of get within that sense. So it's real good appeal. It's nice job to kind of have for some of that. Just good conduct here just in the pitch. I do feel like I enjoy Screwed Up a little bit more. That's just a little bit more vicious of one, but this is definitely probably top 5 of Trae the Truth's best songs in terms of like his most casual aspects. For like starting points for Trae the Truth, probably some of the ones I'd probably go for within the immediate sense would definitely be like Nothing to a Boss off of Life Goes On from 2007, and I'd probably also say that Screwed Up is definitely one of his most vicious type ones, but this is probably another one of those type ones. I'd say Swang is another one just for like cruise around type fare, just errand running pitches like that and amongst the nightlife. And I'd probably say there's like another one in here. Probably I'd have to choose one of his most immediate songs off this product. Might be one like Pop Trunk Wave or Cadillac, even with 3-6 Mafia on there. Some of those type ones. I mean, I have not purchased this album yet, but just to be able to say within the pitch, just within the fare, I'd have to say this is some good tough stuff. That this does have some immediate ones on here with me, giving this album like a 10 out of 10. This is kind of the pitch behind it. So yeah, basically I recommend every song out of the 17 songs on here. There are 18 songs, but one of which is Who the Truth Is, which is just a 10-second skit. So there's 17 songs on here. The only 2 songs I don't recommend in any fashion would just be The Rain and Dedicated to You. And then the almost song would be Real Talk. So it's just kind of within the pitch. So basically like 14 and a half out of 17 just within the pitch behind it. But I just look after it. 14 and a half just within the pitch behind it. But I would have to say, so The Rain is basically just like a personal type one where it's just the dreariness behind that one was just not as affable. I'd have to say it's a good nice one to kind of have for like some slog kind of days as far as those pitches can happen, but it just was not as full bound catchy just within the sense behind it. It's the same thing with Dedicated to You. This was trying to pull off like more kind of overcast day, kind of Tech 9 type fare, just like a more rumination type sense, just on the go, but it just didn't have as much full bound appeal about it. It was a good attempt, but it was just kind of the concept, just a little bit more rough around the edges, I'd have to say. And then Real Talk was an almost song. I did appreciate this song. It's definitely like a fast living kind of city hop fun to kind of get here. It just reminds me of like early 2000s kind of Dipset type vibes as far as those pitches can happen. Just Blurry Times kind of cruise out, I'd have to say. Pretty productive errands type song kind of get, but this is the concept of how much immersed you are within that particular style. This is a little bit more of like a hardcore type one. It's kind of one of those type ones that you would expect from like, it's kind of more big city New York type fare just within the pitch behind it. Definitely some city hop typeness to kind of get within that aspect, just some quick productive kind of bustle, but I just look after it like it's a good type fare, but it just is pretty much like the only real sketchy type one on here in terms of like the aspect. Not so much sketchy in terms of quality, but just the aspect of this, how it's just a little bit more intense of a song compared to most of the rest of this album. I'd say just kind of within the concept behind it, but it works for the most part. It's just kind of concept. I just question how emphatic folks would be 5 minutes full bound with that one, I'd have to say, but some good type of appeal. So yeah, the rest of this album hits pretty damn heavily, I'd have to say. There's some definite nice ones on here. So there are some ones that are like stock kind of DJ drama and Don Cannon kind of mixtape type fare. I definitely would say Restless, the title track, is one of those. It's like a vintage kind of mid-2000s DJ drama mixtape soul to kind of get here. Just some on the grind kind of productive bout it type fare, I'd have to say. Just the usual vanilla day kind of push I'd have to suppose about this one. Good type tones for some of that. So it's a good type tone that even Trae the Truth was doing some of these mixtape type ones that folks like Jeezy, Birdman, Lil Wayne, folks like that, Joel Santana were kind of doing. T.I., even some of these type folks that kind of did that particular fare. So it's just the same stock product as far as those pitches can happen. Even Bun B, some of those type folks, good typeness kind of get that. Song Cries, another one just like that. Another vibe that these particular songs take some good nutrients from would be Jay-Z's The Blueprint. This is an example example. This is just a blatant. This has the same song titles, the song off Jay-Z's The Blueprint, Good Type Fair. Stock kind of mixtape soul, definite mid-2000s vibes about this one. This also just like the Jay-Z Blueprint song, just in the same pitch, same relative fair. Residential errands kind of push, kind of get within that particular tone. So some good type fair for as far as those pitch kind of happen. The song The Truth, which is supposed to be a Tupac song, is a pretty nice one. It's like a simmering kind of anguish evening haze kind of get here. This definitely gives Tupac and 96 vibes. I had to say about this one. Just goes with Quit Calling Me. I'd have to say about this particular tone. It's just some stock slag kind of get here. So just some evening kind of commerce, just in the sense behind it. Just that standard kind of 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock p.m. type dredge. A little bit more in Hustler's Makeshift, more so than Blue Collar type fare, but it's a good aspect kind of have for some of this type fare. This is probably what Tupac would have evolved into had he made it past 96. I'd have to say within that particular fare. So some good type aspects as far as those pitch can happen. Another one that's just like that is Quit Calling Me. Really appreciate this song. It's like a good woozy but alert kind of ladies keep it real song. I'd have to say within the pitch. Just staying 10, definite nice one for staying 10 toes down. I'd have to say about it here. I'd have to suppose pretty much some routine kind of straightening evenings as far as those pitch can happen. Just dust, things like that. It's just kind of within the pitch behind it. I'd have to say just good type fare. So there is some dredge on this particular product that has suppose is full boundness in the pitch behind it. It just really has the aspect of being able to nail some of that. It's good type tones for some of this commerce that just works within the fare. Now I did find myself wanting more songs like In the Hood, I'd have to say, but there is enough commerce just to be able to get that. A lot of this nightlife just has some good type of appeals. Like most of this album is not pretty much amongst like a summer afternoon just within the pitch. It's not really like it's like noon or 1 o'clock to stock 80-degree type weather. It's just more of like anything past about 5:30, 6 within the pitch is like the sun is setting, just amidst like the getting ready for nightlife with just within fares like that, I'd have to say. But intro's a real nice one here. I was surprised by this particular song. This was really a highlighted type one. And this like a brooding, songs like a brooding and contorted kind of roll up a few joints to kind of get within that pitch. Just primers for Demon Time, I would feel like here. Just some Demon Time fun. Just kind of the concept of just woke up past 7 p.m. I'd have to say within this particular fare. This goes hand in hand with songs like In the Hood and some of those type ones, and Swang if you're more motivated to get on the road as far as the pitches like that would have to kind of happen there. It's a good conduct of just like those initial moments of figuring out what you're going to do past 6, 7 p.m. especially in the warmer weather. The real nice one on here would be Matter of Time. Now this has Maya on here. This is a grab for like some commercial radio, which is a pretty good pitch. This might have made like a good single if it had like, I just question the composition if it would have been allowed. I just question the composition if it would have been allowed for some of those type pitches. I would have said within that fare, just considering his label, just within the pitch behind it. I mean, I'm glad that Trae the Truth was putting out albums, but it's just kind of within the pitch that he's kind of similar to Tech 9 type territory, where it didn't seem like he was always putting out singles just in the pitch because the label may not have wanted to. But Matter of Time is like an us against the world. Matter of Time is like an us against the world with ladies in mind, kind of in the fray, kind of in Dredgy City, evening slide, kind of get within those pitches. I'd have to say just a typical day, kind of edgy makeshift, kind of have within that sense. It's just kind of one. I like the tone behind this one. It's pretty some good stuff in particular, like a song like Me and My Girlfriend by Tupac, one of those type ones, just amidst like the city dredge as far as those pitch kind of happen. Just a kind of slummish type day, just something with a little bit more middle fingers up type fare. This pitch like that, just kind of aspect of just kind of like this typical kind of smog just in the air pitches like that, just a standard kind of, they real kind of just fatigue and pitches like that, just that typical kind of Tuesday, Wednesday kind of push, just amidst like the work week, whether it's blue collar or just hustlers, makeshift, just within the fair, but just kind of aspect, just like that typical kind of traffic and push amongst the aspect of just being out and about in the city, but just kind of with Bay nearby as far as those pitches kind of happen with it. More typical within the fashion, just evening slag, just kind of, this is like the closest thing like a typical kind of blue collar type makeshift on here within the sense. There are some ones like that on here. Like one that's definitely like that would be No Help with Zero, but this is a little bit more an evening type fare, where No Help's a little bit more morning type fare. It's just kind of within the push. If you do have like standard to report to things as far as those pitch kind of having, just the aspect of just having just with Bella's in mind as far as those pitch can happen. So it's good type tone, just having like a team as far as those pitch can happen. It's a good type concept for having you and her as a team as far as those pitch can happen, just within the fare behind it. And then just to talk about No Help here, it's like a clean cut kind of morning and brunch breezes kind of get off this particular one. It's probably the closest thing here to like Target, Commerce, Starbucks, Panera Bread, some of that type fare. It's definitely like an SFW kind of cruise around as far as pitch like that kind of happen. This good 9 o'clock, 9:45, 10:15 a.m. type pitch as far as those pitches kind of happen with it. Real quality hook on here from Zero just within the pitch. He also drops a verse on here, which is a pretty good fare. Just really feels like something. Some of those type ones, just like the Texas push on that particular fare, this is definitely some good concepts. Makes me question if Zero had songs like this on his albums as far as those pitches kind of happen. Paul Wall did not. This is surprisingly a makeshift for Trae the Truth as far as those pitches kind of happen. I don't remember songs like this being as much full bound on like albums like The People's Champ and like Mike Jones's album, Who is Mike Jones, some of those type of fairs, just pitches within that relative type fair. So it's just a good aspect kind of have for some of this that relative kind of makeshift commerce within a sense. But I think Paul Wall did actually have some of that on the People's Champ. I want to say maybe like Smooth Operator, one of those type ones, but just within the concept, just saying that this is a pretty good commercial grab on here. So it's just within the sense behind that. Coming around the corner is a nice one. This has Jim Jones on here, which is a pretty good grab as far as this pitch can happen. It's like a hopping, kind of wide awake, kind of demon time living to kind of get within that fair. Just a typical kind of lackadaisical day outings to have within that fair behind it. So it's just some good concepts. Basically, if you're just if your normal hours are just after 8 o'clock p.m. or if 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock p.m. you've only been awake for like the past 3 or 4 hours and you're just amidst like the night, commerce, amidst that concept where your night is kind of like a routine person's day, where noon for a normal person would be like 10 o'clock p.m. for you, something like that within that relative type fair. It's just amidst that kind of concept. There are some wide awake ones on here. Another one that's kind of similar to this one coming around the corner would be So Gangsta with Bun B. There's just a nice pitch it's going to get within that aspect. Just some good sparkling kind of nightlife to kind of have within those aspects of just getting shit done amongst like the night times as far as those fairs can happen. So it's good type tones, just getting some production, just getting some good pushes as far as that particular vibe kind of happens with it. So Gangsta's another one within that pitch. Is like an alert and apt and ready kind of get shit done kind of night commerce kind of get within the aspect, just like coming around the corner, like I was saying, just amongst like the quick times. I'd have to suppose some pretty productive type one. This one just feels a little bit more with like a mission in mind. Is something where you got to get something done, where you're just kind of like fuck this person, something like that. Just kind of straightening as far as those pitches kind of happen, just with more kind of burly kind of grind in mind within that tone behind it. It's more night ride outs to something vintage of like UGK or folks like that. Just be able to say Boss Hog Outlaws, some of those type folks within that tone behind it. Just it's kind of amongst like the standard nightlife dramatics as far as those pitches can happen. So it's just a little bit more of like a drama type song, just kind of the concept of just caught up in like night living as far as those fairs can happen, just in between kind of his personal life type more appeals behind it. But it is a good concept, kind of get some of this. Bun B does a pretty good job on this song, as does Trae the Truth. So it's good type fair. Then there's just some like stuck as hell type songs. There's some nice ones on here, like Cadillac's a real nice one. I like that this said 3-6 Mafia on here. It's pretty good grab to kind of get them on here back in those days. It's like a stuck as hell kind of grand vehicle knock and drench kind of cruise around and get within this pitch. This probably has one of the album's best beats. This might be one of the most immediate top 5 of Trae the Truth songs, like I was saying, at least from what I've heard from him these 2 albums. I definitely say this is one of the better ones. This is one of the more, probably one of the more, if not most immediate type ones, kind of go for like some of that appeal. This getting crunk, kind of toke and feel nice just within the pitch behind as far as those fairs kind of happen. So there's definitely some good ones on here, just to have Eyes Gold, this real torch as hell, red eyes type fair, just in the pitch behind it's getting hella tore up. I mean, this is not as much a full bound kind of smoker's delight. There's definitely some commerce in here just within the pitch of just having other things in mind, but it is a concept that there are some months where you are going to be pretty high as hell, where you might have to sit down a bit after smoking too much as far as those fairs can happen. So some good type tones for that. Then I would say Screw Done Already Warned Me is a nice one as well. It's like a hella stuck, kind of smoke quite a few, just in kind of like a syrupy cruise around type slag. I'd have to say about this song, it's a pretty good song to be melted to. So yeah, Screw Done Already Warned Me is this hotbox the whip type of affair. It's just pitches like that. I'd have to say just a good nice one. It's pretty similar to Cadillac and Pop Trunk Wave, some of those type ones. But speaking of Pop Trunk Wave, I think this is one of the last ones I haven't talked about here. It's like a dreary kind of evening commute to kind of get Pop Trunk Waves, like a dreary kind of evening commute to kind of get amongst this one, just off the fritz kind of a bit, just within the tone behind it, just typical kind of after work shift haze that I'd say about it here. Just some simple errands kind of have within that pitch. So it's just kind of the concept of this, having some smokage in your system, but still the commute of just being able to get within standard day type slag, just in the pitch behind it. It's kind of one that goes along with something like Matter of Time, just without a bell in mind as far as those pitch kind of having just that same sort of evening slag type push. Is something that probably goes pretty much like not quite as anguished as a song like The Truth, or anguished as Quit Calling Me, but just within the aspect of probably like 4 o'clock, 6:15, 5:15 type PM type pitches within those fairs behind as far as those fairs can go. Just a little bit more of like a jury type one, but works within the pitch behind it. So just some nice ones on here. So yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10, like I was saying, talked about every song on here within those fairs as far as that particularly kind of goes. Only 2 out of 17 I didn't recommend in any full-blown fashion, plus 1 almost song in Real Talk I'd have to say. So the social score, that's a little bit more of like a haphazard typeness, but I'd have to say, not to say haphazard in terms of score, but just trying to figure out what to do with it. I'd probably say, in terms of like the cruise around, just the out and about type living, this is very social, just kind of on the go type times. It's kind of amongst the concept of some quick times. It's not really staying around in too much in one spot at one particular time, minus the song In the Hood. That's really like the only nightclub song I can really think of here. Most of these other songs like Cadillac, So Gangsta, Screw Done Already Warned Me, Pop Trunk Wave, Coming Around the Corner, most of these are just vehicle bound, just kind of amidst like night kind of out and about, or at least if you're not in a vehicle kind of out and about, just kind of night stroll kind of gas station type music, just the commerce of just getting snack runs, pitches like that that, some of that type fare. But In the Hood's like the only real one where you're kind of in one spot, kind of with like a relative dance kind of two-step type vibe about it. So it's just the pitch. I feel like there's some good type moments on here for that particular fair. Just you and a few pals just cruising around and getting some stuff done as far as this fair's gonna happen with it. But it's just within the aspect. There are some lady songs within that same motion, some good makeshift songs on here within those pitches, some good kind of mixtape soul within some of that stuff. Fair has a pretty good balance. I'd probably have to say the singles are pretty good on here within the pitch, but I think I'm gonna give the social score like a 9.5. I just would say because the quality is definitely on here. It's just kind of the pitch that it probably needed like a few more dance club blitzers, just something with a little bit more casual kind of vibe to kind of get Trae the Truth's name more full blown out there. In the Hood was definitely a good look, but there needed to be another moment like this. This is a little bit brief in terms of like more social kind of nightclub pizzazz, but just in the appeal, most of this other stuff is just kind of some good. Most of this elsewise is some great emotion kind of buzz kind of get within that tone. So 9.5 social. In terms of the future, like I'm not as full bound sure what Trae the Truth has been up to in recent times. I know he has plenty more albums and plenty of mixtapes to kind of get to. I am going to get to his 2008 album, more pitches like that, some good type fair to kind of get here. Just want to see some of these continued type ones because he was on a pretty good string of hits in like the 2000s. But this is definitely one of his most commercial type ones. But it's just within the aspect he was always kind of more and like not necessarily secondary in quality, but just kind of more off to the wayside where you just once you dig past the ones like Slim Thug, Chameleonaire, Paul Wall, Mike Jones, some of those type folks, T.I., Young Dro, Young Jock, some of those type folks, you would eventually find Trae the Truth. So some good type fair. But just to say, classic album here, just in the pitch. Now it's just within the impact of saying it's not as much casual, but I would say with the most part has enough immediate type ones on here where you could probably display this to folks and they probably relatively say this has enough contemporary aspects on here where they probably mostly enjoy most of the product of this.